Okay, welcome everyone to the September meeting of the Rehoboth Beach Board of Adjustment. Do roll call to my left.
William Pearlstein.
Jan Conacy.
Barry Brandt.
Fred Townsend, attorney for the board.
Edie Heron.
Mark Saunders.
Okay, the entire board is present. Thank you. And was the meeting and the public notice properly posted?
Yes, it was. The agenda for the September 26th Board of Adjustment regular meeting was posted in City Hall and on the city portal on September 15th. The notice of the agenda was sent out from the portal on September 15th. The agenda was amended and reposted on September 22nd. The public notices for case number 0423-05 for the property located at 104 Scarborough Avenue, and case number 0823-08 for the property located at 100 East Lake Drive were posted at City Hall and on the city portal on August 30th. Both public notices were published in Cape Gazette on September 5th and September 8th, and Delaware State News on September 7th and September 8th. Notification specific to each property was mailed out to property owner addresses within 200 feet of the subject properties, and signage was posted on the properties.
Thank you. I know we have two electronic letters regarding the cases today, and we just received a walk-on letter. I think, did the board get it? Everyone has it?
Yes.
And,
Yes.
okay, and did the applicant get a copy of this letter as well? From Jay, did you? Not, okay, so we're gonna have to make sure that letter, so it's 100 East Lake here? Okay, so Jay, could you walked on a letter to the board, so I want to make sure you get a copy of that as well. Thank you. Okay, and so did everyone get a chance to review the letter, now the three letters submitted to the board? Okay.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, and we do have some minutes to approve, so we'll walk through these one at a time. Ann sent them out, and there were a couple updates in email. The minutes from April 24th of 2023, if everyone's had a chance to review them, may I get a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, June 26th, may I get a motion?
I move that we accept.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And August 28th, 2023, may I get a motion on those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And thank you, Ann, for putting all those minutes together. That's
Particularly that long meeting,
yeah, thank you.
the eight and a half hour meeting that we had
The 8.5-hour board.
in
Next time we do that, we're having dinner brought in.
I won't be here.
I think neither will I.
And we are passing around two notices of decisions. Did everyone get a chance to
We've signed.
sign them? I've signed. Okay, so we don't need to make a motion on that.
Well,
We-
I think for the record, it might be best if we just make a quick motion second and vote to release those decisions.
Okay. May I get a motion on case number 0723-03? Address is 17 Stokely Street.
I'll move it.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And the second one was 17 Park, case number 0723-04. May I get a motion on the notice of decision?
I move.
And a second, please? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Right. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on. We do not have any old business. And today, our new business, we have two cases on the calendar. Both cases deal with area and not use. One is seeking a variance on allowable size of a lot, and the second is seeking a variance on the size of an accessory building. The board applies the appropriate quick check factors that Delaware law recognizes as guidance for the Board of Adjustment. So today's first case is 104 Scarborough Avenue. It is a request for variance to allow 13.06 feet and 219.7 square feet from the requirements of Section 270-22A3, that any new lot contain a rectangle of at least 4,000 square feet in an area with its shortest side measuring at least 48 feet. The property is located in the residential district on tax map parcel 334-14.17-351.00, lots number 11 and 12, and a portion of 13 and 14, block number 22. The address is 104 Scarborough. Under Delaware law, an applicant for an area variance must prove that the requirements create an exceptional practical difficulty. To determine whether an exceptional practical difficulty exists, the board must weigh in on the following 4 factors: the nature of the zone where the property lies, the character and use of the immediate vicinity, whether removal of the restrictions on an applicant's property would seriously affect neighboring properties and their uses, and finally, number 4, whether failure to remove the restriction would create an exceptional practical difficulty for the owner in relation to the owner's effort to make normal improvements to the property. This standard is satisfied only when difficulties alleged by the owner are practical rather than theoretical and exceptional rather than routine. Everyone today who wishes to speak will be required to be sworn in to give their testimony under oath. Our attorney, Mr. Townsend, will administer those oaths. We do not have a court reporter, so everyone please speak into the microphone so that when Ann does those fantastic minutes, we have a good, solid recording. Is anyone here today here to speak for or against Scarborough, 104 Scarborough? Okay, thank you. All right. And Ann, I assume, well, I'll not assume, I will ask, were everyone in the 200-foot property of the property location notified? Okay, thank you. Okay, after the applicants, well, we don't have anyone from the public, so the city, the applicants finish speaking, we will close down any further public commentary, and then the board will deliberate on the case. So at this time, I'm going to ask the city to go review their report for 104 Scarborough.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. Before you today is case number 0423-05. The location for this application is 104 Scarborough Avenue. The applicants are Walls Apartments, LLC of 246 Rehoboth Avenue in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, 19971. The owners are listed as the same. The applicant seeks relief from the following: 270-22 minimum lot dimensions A3. Nature of the request is as follows. The applicant is seeking a variance to section 270-22 minimum lot dimensions A3 can fully contain within it a rectangle of at least 4,000 square feet in area and with its shortest side measuring at least 48 feet. The property is located at 104 Scarborough Avenue and is situated in the R1 residential district. The property is listed in Sussex County records as tax map number 334-14.17-351.00. The parcel is an irregularly shaped parcel and contains approximately 28,558 square feet. Applicant background information is as follows. The applicant is seeking to partition the existing property into 4 parcels with permission from the Planning Commission. The application is in advance of a PC meeting to secure a variance in the event the commission votes in favor of the proposed subdivision. Variance requested. The applicant is seeking relief from the following provisions: 270-22 minimum lot dimensions A. No new lot shall be created, nor shall any existing lot be changed in size or shape unless each new or changed lot 3 can fully contain within it a rectangle of at least 4,000 square feet in area and with its shortest side measuring at least 48 feet. As shown on the submitted documentation, when the new parcels are created via subdivision, the parcel located to the northernmost point of the proposed subdivision will create an irregularly shaped parcel. This parcel will not contain a 4,000 square foot rectangle as this provision requires and shall require a variance for its creation. The conclusion from the department is because the applicant intends to move forward to the PC for a major subdivision request of the existing parcel, and the request creates a parcel that does not meet the requirements of the noted code section, the applicant is seeking a variance so that the proposal may move forward.
Thank you. Now, is there any questions immediately for the building inspector? If not, we'll have the applicant make their presentation, and we can open up for questions.
I have two quick ones.
Okay.
Matt, on the first page, there seems to be some missing text, and I just want to make sure I'm square. Under nature of request, you have applicant is seeking a variance to blah, 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 A3, comma, can fully. What's that supposed to
That
say?
is the way that that's the way that the code section actually reads from in the zoning ordinance.
Okay, so,
So it starts off as A3 can fully
oh, okay, it really
contain-
says that.
It really says that.
Oh, that, nice. And I'm confirming, I think that something that we all are assuming, and I want to make absolutely sure, that the Planning Commission has not yet approved the subdivision, that's what you're saying.
That is
because-
correct. No
okay.
application has gone forward
Right.
to the planning commission thus far.
Okay, we saw that, and then Fred sent us the board, the rules from Planning Commission for us to look at.
Correct.
So I just want to be absolutely sure that we're all starting on the same threshold.
That's right.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Have the applicant come up, be sworn in.
That's fine, yeah.
Okay, thank you, David.
We can go ahead and start with the oath. Sure. I think it's Mr. Lingo, correct?
Yes.
Could you give me your address, please, for the record? Name and address for the record, and then we'll administer the oath.
My name is T. William Lingo, go by Bill. 246 Avenue is our office, and I'm representing Walls LLC.
And do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is David Hutt. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Morris James out of their Sussex County offices. This afternoon, I'm representing Walls Apartments LLC, the owner of the property and applicant, as it was just introduced by Mr. Janis a moment ago. With me, as you just heard a moment ago, is one of the principals of Walls Apartment LLC, Bill Lingo. This afternoon, the board is asked to consider a somewhat unique variance request for the former site of some of the Walls Apartments buildings. I know most of you have been in Rehoboth for a long time and would recognize the Walls Apartments names. As you know from the application, they are situated along Scarborough Avenue. And Mr. Janis's report did a good job of describing the variance request from section 270-22A3 regarding the 4,000 square foot rectangle with the shortest side being 48 feet. While this is presently one tax parcel for taxing purposes, it is actually 10 lots, 8 full lots and 2 partial lots from Block 22 of the original 1924 Rehoboth Heights subdivision in the city of Rehoboth Beach. As I'm sure most of you know, there were 2 primary subdivisions that occurred that form much of the city of Rehoboth Beach as you know it today. One of those being the Rehoboth Beach Camp Meeting Association, and the other, of course, being Rehoboth Heights. And if you looked at the project books, we had those historical plots as they're recorded in the Office of the Recorder of Deeds in tab 5. And then in tab 6, there are actually tax maps that show this. And I would encourage anybody to look at tab 6 in particular. The very last page is a description, or rather a drawing, that shows all of the various lots from the Rehoboth Heights and Rehoboth Beach Camp Meeting Association within, I'll call it the block that encompasses Philadelphia Street, Scarborough, and Christian Street. Before we talk about the sort of the odd shape of this lot, or irregular shape, as you heard from the building inspector's report, I guess it's important to bear in mind that with those 2 original subdivisions, the Rehoboth Beach Camp Meeting Association, as a rule of thumb, and Mr. Janis will cringe when I say this, I think, but as a rule of thumb, most of the lots were 50 by 100. or more often than not, they were 50 by 100 or intended to be 50 by 100. Whereas in Rehoboth Heights, by contrast, the lots are generally 25 by 100. And that's shown, actually, if you look at that tax map at the end of tab 6 that I just referenced a moment ago, you can actually see the differences in the lot sizes pretty readily. That tab shows that this is actually along between Christian Street and Philadelphia Street is where these two subdivisions actually met, where Rehoboth Beach Camp Meeting Association and Rehoboth Heights met, which also explains some of the awkwardness or irregularity of this application. You can see on the Christian Street side of this block are the Rehoboth Beach Camp Meeting Association lots that are 50 by 100, and then, of course, on the Philadelphia Street and Scarborough Avenue side are the Rehoboth Heights lots that have the 25 by 100 in general. Two of those lots, lots 13 and 14, which start on Philadelphia Street, run all the way back to the rear of the lots from Christian Street. And of course, that makes those lots longer than 100 feet. Some of them are quite long. In fact, the easternmost boundary of Lot 14 is 262 feet long. So those were very long lots that began on Philadelphia Street and then moved all the way back. If you, when you look at that, the plot, it shows that, again, this afternoon's application actually involves, because this is one tax parcel right now, this application involves Lot 5, Lot 6, Lot 7, Lot 8, Lot 9, Lot 10, Lot 11, that triangular Lot 12 that's adjacent to the Rehoboth Beach Camp Meeting Association lots, and then, of course, those are all the lots that I just referenced are the ones that front on Scarborough, and then it involves sort of the rear 2/3, between 1/2 and 2/3 of lots 13 and 14. In a prior subdivision many, many years ago, 13 and 14 became a standard 50 by 100 lot facing onto Philadelphia Street, and the rear portion of those lots became part of the Walls Apartments complex. The land was purchased by Walls Apartments, LLC, the applicant this afternoon in 2014, from the trust of Ann K. Walls McCool. The deed for that was in the project book, as well as the boundary survey that was done at that time. And certainly, if you looked at that boundary survey, you saw that it showed the location of the two larger apartment buildings that are labeled as motel, actually, on that survey itself. In around April of 2019, those two buildings were raised, and the only improvements that remain on the site presently are at the northernmost boundary, and you could see those images and the outline and footprint of those buildings were still shown on the survey that you have. As set forth in the cover letter when the application was filed, the owners of the property met with the city a little while ago to discuss this application and really the procedure and process. There was a good question earlier about sort of where we are procedurally in this. And some of the folks who were present at that meeting are here. Mr. Mandalis was at that meeting. Mr. Janis was at the meeting. The Planning Commission's attorney, Mr. Mehta, was at that meeting as well as some other folks. And what was discussed was the Planning Commission's rules of procedure, which says that before you can move forward even to a preliminary review with that body, if there's going to be a variance involved, the first stop needs to be the Board of Adjustment. So this afternoon is that first stop. That's why we're here. We haven't been to the Planning Commission yet. And if we're successful here this afternoon, then will be the next stop. And as you hear in a little bit, if we're not successful here, it'll be our stop as well, just with a different plan. So we're obviously hopeful that we're successful and that it's the plan that was submitted with the variance application. But that's a long way of also saying that this is not the last time that this matter will be in front of the city. It still certainly has to go through the Planning Commission process for a major subdivision. Certainly when you look at the property and the surveys that are in the record, I'm sure it's difficult to imagine how a 28,558 square foot lot with 219.5 feet of frontage on Scarborough Avenue can't be readily divided into 4 lots. As you know, lots are 5,000 square foot each with 50 feet of frontage. And so there's there's almost 20 feet of additional frontage. And 8,500 square feet of additional area available. And of course, the explanation for why that can't readily be met is because of the irregular shape of the parcel, again, where Rehoboth Heights meets the Rehoboth Beach Camp Meeting Association plot. I walked through that history of the Rehoboth Beach Camp Meeting Association area and the Rehoboth Heights areas, not just because I like history and I'm fascinated by the title of all of that, but also because I think it informs how we got here this afternoon. Because it is the joining of those two subdivisions, and frankly, the Rehoboth Beach Camp Meeting Association came along much sooner than the Rehoboth Heights subdivision. This is the location where those two things meet, and the Rehoboth Beach Camp Meeting Association has a very angled line that matches Christian Street as it heads east towards the ocean. By way of quick additional information, and this was in Mr. Janis's report as well, the property is zoned R1 in the city. It does contain 28,558 square feet. And the requirements for a major subdivision are found in 270-22A. I thought it'd be helpful to read those, not that you're not familiar with them, because I think it helps to establish the baseline. And what 270-22 says is, it says minimum lot dimensions, and then it says A, no new lot shall be created, nor shall any existing lot be changed in size or shape unless each new or changed lot, and then there's three requirements. The first is, has at least 50 feet of frontage on a street. Then there's a great big explanation about an exception that doesn't apply in this case. Two is, has a minimum area of 5,000 square feet. And then three is the awkwardly began sentence, can fully contain within it a rectangle of at least 4,000 square feet in area, and with its shortest side measuring at least 48 feet. As I noted a moment ago, certainly this property can readily meet those first two requirements of having 50 feet of frontage on a city street, and then the minimum area of 5,000 square feet, numbers 1 and 2. This application this afternoon is about that third requirement. And if you looked in at the proposed survey, which was called Concept 1 and was tab 7 in the project books, you can see the proposed major subdivision that this application would allow to proceed forward. The three southernmost lots would all be 7,500 square feet. Again, you can see those are combinations of various portions of the lot. If you start at the southernmost one, it's lot 5, 6, and the backside of 13 and 14. The next lot, as you were traveling north, would be lot 7 and 8, and then 13 and the backside of 13 and 14. The next 7,500 square foot lot would be lot 9 and 10 with the backside of 13 and 14. And then we have the triangular shaped lot at the northernmost end, which again is lots 11 and 12, and then a portion of lots 13 and 14 again. All of those lots, as you can see, readily meet the square footage and frontage requirements. And you can see drawn into them is that 4,000 square foot rectangular box with a minimum size of 48 feet, or the shortest side rather being 48 feet. And you can see at the eastern boundary where that rectangular box extends outside of that proposed lot, creating the need for the 219.7 square feet, as well as the 13.06 feet for the 48 feet.
Mr. Hunt, how big will that lot be?
How deep would it be?
No, how many square feet?
It would be, the total square
Says
footage would be
6,058.
6,058.
See, okay, I see that, thank you.
Yeah, it's just, you got
There's a lot of numbers there, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of numbers, yeah.
So yeah, and that's, as you know, that's more than 1,000, a little more than 1,000 square feet over the minimum lot size. So it certainly will not be an undersized lot by any stretch. In fact, and this was part of the meeting that we had with the city earlier, that third requirement, the 4,000 square feet with a minimum size of, shortest side rather being 48 feet, can be met, but it does create a much less desirable lot, not only for this property owner, but any property owner, as well as the neighbors of this lot, and for the city itself. Included in the very next tab in the project book, at tab 8, was a demonstration of how this property can be subdivided into, using the major subdivision tool, into 4 lots that meet all 3 requirements from 270-22A. And as you can see, the first requirement that it has 50 feet of frontage is met, as it has 69.53 feet of frontage. It would certainly meet the 5,000 square foot minimum, as it's more than twice that, being 11,058 square feet. And then the third requirement, that it can fit the 4,000 square foot rectangle, having the shortest side being 48 feet. It can meet that requirement behind the other proposed lots. As I stated a moment ago, this does not appear to be a good outcome for any portion of this property, for Scarborough Avenue, for Philadelphia Street and Christian Street. And so I would say for the city in general, that you would have this lot where the portion that meets that requirement is behind those other lots that are on Scarborough Avenue. If the variance is granted, however, and we go back to tab 7 to look at that, again, all of those lots meet the requirements of A1, 2, and they all meet the requirement for 3, except for, of course, the lot on the very northernmost end needs variance for the third level of requirements. Mr. Brandt,
Oh, I'm sorry. If there's, is
No, I didn't have a question. Go
I
ahead.
have tons of
Oh, I
questions
have-
too,
Oh, we have
whenever
lots of questions,
whenever
but
he's
keep going.
finished.
questions, I didn't know if you were finished.
no, I'm almost finished, though. So.
I'm finishing.
Mr. Brandt did a good job at the beginning of the meeting of talking about what the legal standard is for variances. And in section 270-74 of the city code, it talks, it says that the board has the authority to grant variances that are not contrary to the public interest and due to special conditions or exceptional situations. A literal interpretation results in exceptional practical difficulties, so that the spirit of the ordinance can still be observed and substantial justice done. And that it also goes on to say that the relief that's requested can be provided without impairing the intent and purpose of the zoning code. Mr. Brandt noted that this application is for a area variance, which is certainly the less burdensome exceptional practical difficulty test, rather than the unnecessary hardship standard. And the quick check factors were referenced and read a moment ago by Mr. Brandt. I'm going to go over those quickly. The first is the nature of the zone in which the property lies. This property is in the R1 residential district. The purpose of that district, pursuant to 270-11, is to protect and maintain those residential areas now developed primarily with single-family detached dwellings and primarily on lots of at least 5,000 square feet. As you all know, this area is already developed in this same fashion. These are single-family homes on, generally speaking, 5,000 square foot lots, whether you're on Philadelphia Street, Christian Street, Scarborough. That is the nature of this area, and these proposed lots would all be consistent with the nature of the area in which the property lies. And in fact, I think what the exhibit at tab 8 shows is that if the variance is not granted, you're going to end up with a lot that is unlike the other lots that are in this area, a lot that begins on Scarborough Avenue and then extends beyond other lots. Even though it's a larger lot, it will be unlike the other lots that exist in this area and not consistent with the nature of the zone. The character and uses of the vicinity is very similar to that first factor. Again, these are residential homes on, generally speaking, conforming lots to the code, and that is what is proposed, is these same standard lots for this major subdivision, if it's allowed to proceed forward as shown in tab 7. The third question is whether removal of the restriction on the applicant's property would seriously affect the neighboring property and their uses, and certainly it would not seriously affect the properties, as this will allow single-family residential homes to be constructed on these lots along Scarborough Avenue. And again, I would point to the fact that if there is an impact, I think that the legally conforming one that extends beyond the other lots has a much greater impact on the neighbors than doing the subdivision as it's being proposed in tab 7 with this variance for that third requirement. from 270-22A. The fourth requirement is whether failure to remove the restriction results in an exceptional practical difficulty for the owner to make normal improvements in the character and use of character of the use of the property. And this standard from the quick check test is a great description, I think, of exactly what's occurring in this circumstance we're here on this afternoon. The owner of the property is trying to make a normal use of the property, a normal subdivision, creating lots that conform, and as we just said, these lots would conform to the nature and characteristics of the area. But because of the shape of that parcel and how it came into existence in that fashion, that process has been made exceptionally difficult in this circumstance, and the net result could be a minus for the city as you end up with that awkwardly shaped lot extending beyond other lots. The board gets to balance all of those factors. Again, all four of them, we believe, weigh in favor of the granting of a variance, as there is no harm to the neighbors with respect to their expectations of the zoning code. Certainly, these lots are all going to be greater than 5,000 square feet. They're all going to meet the minimum frontage, and actually the lot that we're talking about for the northernmost lot, its frontage is even greater than required on Scarborough Avenue. And so in all of those factors, the neighbors will not have their expectations about the enforcement of the zoning code disappointed. Frankly, the harm in this case would be to, as I said before, to this owner, any other owner, and frankly the owners in the area and the city that has, frankly, a poorly designed result with a lot extending beyond other lots. There's no harm done to the code, as every piece of property is always unique, but this is certainly a very unique situation where lots meet in this fashion and you have an irregular shape as you do in this occurrence. That concludes my presentation, so I'm happy to answer any questions. I know there were some questions as I was going through.
Thank you, Mr. Hupp. But before we get into the questions, I want to ask Mr. Mendelis and Mr. Townsend a question. The Planning Commission made that decision in January to amend their rules to come to the Board of Adjustment first before they go to the Planning Commission. I've always been taught that we can only look at artifacts as they exist in the city, and that is a very large singular lot today. So if this were approved, that would allow the applicant to put, less than 4,000 square foot boxes, conceivably maybe putting 5, 6 homes. Probably can't, but I want to make sure that if this were to be approved, it would have to be with some contingencies to make sure that we're not granting a variance on something that may never happen. You follow me? It's a chicken and the egg situation. So as long as I think we've said that and we're clear, I think we're okay, because it will never solve this with this Planning Commission Board of Adjustment thing. I just want to make sure this is the first case since that decision we can talk about that.
It's interesting, and Mr. Townsend may have something to add as well, but I would think that you probably want to do some form of an approval that says you're approving it so long as this is the plan that's submitted to the Planning Commission.
Correct, yes. Yeah. Okay. So that's okay with
That is. It would be this plan, what was submitted with the application, or even just saying that the northernmost lot created by joining lots 11, 12 in the rear of 13 and 14 would allow for that variance. So it would be specific to that one area and couldn't be duplicated all over this large
That's what I wanted to make sure. Okay, I think we're good on that. So we'll open it up to questions. Jan, you want to start?
The first question I have, I just want to make sure that that the setbacks, so we're not addressing setbacks. We're only addressing, so whatever is built there still has to meet all the other requirements of the code, the setbacks, the trees, and everything else.
Agreed.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm, that's my thought. And this is just curiosity, but is that the apartment building that's still there, the office? Is this the lot where the office is?
No, ma'am.
No, it's next to it. I wasn't sure because I know that property well, and I wasn't sure how far 50.
So let's clarify Jan's first question. So the side setbacks still, because we noticed in the diagram
Yeah.
that the 4,000 square foot lot laid down on the diagram is on the northeast bound side of that. And the question would be is there, is what could be built there, understanding those restrictions, for the side setbacks,
The, certainly, you can see the building envelope is actually shown when you look at the survey. And there is an angled portion to that, but there is still adequate room to be, for a home.
Okay.
A home that meets all of the requirements, whether there's setback requirements, lot coverage requirements.
Okay.
FAR, all of those things would have to be met on each of these lots, but certainly is still feasible on this lot. And I would also say, I know that, actually, I thought your question was going to go towards if this subdivision were approved, certainly there's nonconformities that are created, and the Planning Commission would not allow that to happen. For instance, that shed that sits in where that line would be
Well, that- I
drawn
mean,
would have to be,
Well,
that
if
would
you're
have to be
partitioning
removed.
all these lots, they have to be conforming lots. You can't partition a non-conforming lot. So,
We can't create a new nonconformity.
right, you
with
cannot
it.
create a new non-conforming.
And so that shed would be obviously something that would have to be moved or raised.
Well, I had, maybe I made a bad assumption on that. And then, the other thing, of course, the lot is just full of trees, large, beautiful trees. It's not our job to, make decisions about trees, and the Planning Commission, I'm sure, is. But I was just curious, is there a plan to keep as many of the trees as possible in the way you build? And maybe that's a Mr. Lingo question, and,
We always plan to preserve trees, yes, ma'am.
okay.
If you visit our current properties that we own in residential neighborhoods, they all have lots of trees.
Okay, that's all,
Okay,
that was my question.
I want to ask an obvious question. Please state the hardship here.
The hardship is what I reviewed.
Request for the variance, the exceptional practical difficulty, the hardship that you.
Right. The exceptional practical difficulty is that with the angled portion of the lot, the 4,000 square foot rectangle with the shortest side being 48 feet cannot be accomplished. And so the subdivision that results is an undesirable, awkward subdivision that places lots behind other lots.
Okay, and no other hardships?
No, I mean, as I've said, the property can technically be subdivided.
Okay.
It's just an unfortunate subdivision.
Okay.
I'm finished, thank you.
Have you done any research on other comparable lots like this in Rehoboth Beach that have homes on them that, this odd-shaped lot? Is there any other research you say, hey, we've seen presentations here in the past where they come in, people will come in and say, okay, you see this? Even though the board doesn't like saying, oh, well, so-and-so did it, but just as far as your research on oddly shaped lots in Rehoboth.
I guess I'm going to ask the question, I'm going to answer your question by asking a question, which is, are you asking if there are variances that were granted for the 4,000 square foot rectangle and with the shortest side being 48 feet, or if there are lots that have an L shape that...
Most likely the prior, but I'm just wondering, I don't want to get into this habit of creating these odd-shaped situations in the city.
I'm not familiar with, and frankly, Mr. Lingo would be more familiar with this type of a shaped lot than I would, as he's been in Rehoboth Beach longer than I have. So I asked Mr. Lingo, are you familiar with any lots that are that have that frontage on the street and then extend behind other lots?
I am not.
Okay.
Okay, I am. If you
okay,
want to
you-
know,
no,
I mean, I've been
okay.
here a long time. When there was one off of Columbia Avenue that's a very weird shape, but I don't think and Glenn may know when the 4,000 rectangle was passed. I don't think the 4,000 rectangle was.
All I remember is that it was Henry DeWitt's dream that there'd be this
good
provision.
memory
And
here.
so
Woo!
whenever Henry was serving is when.
Well, I think this was before that then.
Yeah, cool.
And because it's across from his old house, kind of at a weird intersection off of Columbia Avenue. And then the one on Lee Street.
Okay.
And it wasn't, but wait a minute, the lot existed. They got a variance, not from me, for the setbacks. because they couldn't meet the
I remember-
setbacks,
okay.
which is my question.
That answered my
I wanted
question.
to make
That's
sure
right.
that you all could meet the setbacks. And you're telling us here you can on the record, and that's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, what we,
And just another way of looking at that is to say that the applicant is not requesting relief from any of the setbacks either. So
Okay.
whether they are confronted with a challenge in the future, that's,
yeah, we don't want to cause a situation of approval, and then we'll see you back here in 3 months. May I, have these variances, on this lot that we created.
Just follow up on Jan's question, whether, Fred, can we certainly put in the minutes that it is the understanding of the board that they're not going to be requesting variances to the setbacks. We can't prohibit them from coming in because they can file anything they want, but so that we have it in the record, and I'm really asking a question, Fred, whether we can have something in the formal record that makes it very clear that that is our understanding on the basis of the statement. That doesn't mean that if something odd comes up, but that if it's something that, frankly, you're coming back and saying the back of the lot doesn't fit on the setback, that's really what we're trying to get at today.
so the minutes can reflect those comments, certainly. I think it's fair to say we can't offer as like a contract term that if we give you this, you have to give us that. There is this concept, though, that to the extent that you have engaged in the development of a property and made decisions about how you want that development to look, you may not be able to meet the test for an exceptional practical difficulty if your difficulty may not be exceptional if you have consciously created the difficulty for yourself. These new lots to the right are, should be very easy to develop.
No-brainer, they're
Yeah.
no-brainers.
Yeah, so
those
we
three.
shouldn't have to worry about area requirements on those lots. The new lot, I think there are two different configurations for the lot that's, what do we call that, north? Is that on the,
This side's north.
yeah, okay, on the left. I think you're equally likely to have some kind of difficulty if the variance is denied and the lot that ultimately results is the one that wraps around the back of these other lots. So I think you might be less likely to be confronted with an application in the future if the applicant's successful.
Okay, Bill?
Yes,
Yeah.
thanks.
Okay, a follow-
If I may, one of the individuals sitting over my shoulder, my left, your right, is Barry Bryan, and he is a contractor who builds in the city of Rehoboth Beach. And if it would give the board comfort, he could certainly, we've asked him this, Mr. Lingo and I have asked him this question as to whether or not that northernmost lot is something that a home could be constructed on without a variance, and he offered that it is, but certainly if you'd like that on the record, we're happy to put that on the record. Mr. Townsend would just need to swear him in.
I'm happy with.
Yeah, I'm happy.
I think
Yeah.
your representation is on the record.
Yeah, there's an obvious question. Doing normal improvements to a property, okay, normal improvements would include 3 lots. You could easily do 3 lots and not 4. I understand the flag lot and concept too. I'm not a real estate expert. The value of land in Rehoboth is, extremely high. And I don't know if I can pose this as a question, but if you made 3 lots, would the value of the lots be that much more to get close to offsetting 4 lots? I don't want to put an answer in your mouth, but if you could do 3 lots, making 3 large lots, beautiful lots, does that get anywhere near, alleviating the problem of 4 lots? In other words,
Without a variance, you're
without a
saying.
variance, yeah.
You're saying if with 3, there wouldn't be a variance, that's what
Did
you're
you,
saying.
did you consider that at all?
I'm not a realtor, but I would always say 4 is
4 is behind. It's kind of like an obvious question, but I wanted to ask it.
But we do have a real estate broker, happens to be sitting to my left, your right. So
I figured that.
I'll ask Mr. Lingo if he would confirm that. But that, before he does, if I may, I would say that that question, I mean, it fascinates me. I'm interested in what he's going to say as well. But I would say this is going to be 4 lots. It's a question of which direction that 4th lot goes. And so while certainly, because there's no variance that's needed to accomplish.
correct,
So
right,
it's really, I don't view it as I guess what I'm saying is I don't view it as a difference between 3 and 4 lots
Right.
with this application. I view it as, are the lots configured as most lots are that go straight back from the street? Or is there one of the lots that has
Flag
to
lot.
wrap behind the other one? But certainly I do want to hear Mr. Lingo's answer as well.
First, yes, I am a Realtor. Second, recently canceled my appraiser's license, and I was a certified appraiser and an expert witness on property values as an appraiser. And I think you've answered your question. 4 lots are going to sell for more than 3 lots.
It wouldn't even get close. I guess that's what I was getting at. Would 3 large lots be equal to 4 smaller lots?
They're going to be 4 large lots.
There's value to size, but 4 lots, there's a big difference in value between 3 and 4.
Okay. I mean, I kind of thought
I don't like to put money into things, but that's.
Yeah, because what I'm trying to get at is the exceptional, of normal improvements to a lot. Well, 3 could normally be improved without a need for a variance, but then you bring in the hardship of the financial aspects of it, and I needed us to talk about that.
And I would say,
Whenever
to-
you're ready. You go ahead.
Mr. Brand, if I may, I would also say that in this case, I view the normal improvement being 4 lots because of the great deal of area we're talking about here, the 28,000 square feet and the 219 square, these are normal improvements because they exceed the base, all 4 of these lots will exceed the base requirements of 50 feet of frontage and
normal
5,000
one.
square feet. So they're well beyond normal. And this stands in the way, that the variance request stands in the way of that normal improvement.
Understood. Okay, and I think a question on what becomes of the existing house on the lot, just curiosity question.
It's being examined whether or not, nobody currently occupies it. It's being investigated to see if it structurally can be maintained or not.
Okay.
But some of the other improvements are intended to be raised, the shed and the garage. And the 1.5-story frame dwelling, it's being investigated as to if it still has a useful life or not.
Okay, thank you. That's all the questions I had. Edie?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to go back to your application, and when you were stating the hardship, the last phrase was, unless a lot is created in lots 7 to 10. Am I correct to assume that that's your alternate plan? That's what you're referring to when you say, unless a lot is created behind lots 7 to 10?
That's correct.
This is the application. That was the phraseology in the application.
That is correct. That's the alternate plan.
That is so the layout that you're showing us is that in tab 8. That's the one to which you refer. Okay. And my question is really about the alternate, as how viable is it? I mean, I wonder where the street access is for that. And what happens to the quote-unquote end lot in this case?
It's part of that other lot. They're all
So
one lot.
it's shaped kind of like an elephant's trunk.
It is. In some places, you might call that a flag lot of some.
Pennsylvania, we called them flag
Correct.
lots, yeah.
That's what I said. In some jurisdictions, that would be a flag lot. And the entrance would be off of Scarborough. Again, it's just an awkwardly shaped lot. That's, and
It's all
Because there was a flag
Right,
down the line.
okay.
That's why it's called a flag.
And I had written, which I think we've confirmed, that would not require any variance. You're agreeing with that?
that is correct.
That's
That's
true.
my position. I certainly,
Yeah.
the
As far
city
as
has
I
to
know,
weigh in on that,
seemed
but
to
my
meet-
position is that
It
does
seems
not
to
require.
meet all of the requirements. Is that true, Matt?
I would certainly have to see more documentation to it, but I could say that theoretically it looks fine right now.
Right. So if we deny the variance, is your plan to go ahead with this alternate, no matter what? I mean, are we in the either-or situation?
Correct. With the amount, that is correct. With the amount of square footage that's here, to not create 4 lots here it just doesn't make sense.
So you're going to create, you're going to create 4 lots no matter what. With a variance, you're going to create what you proposed. Without the variance, you're going to go ahead with their alternate plan as in tab 8. That's the plan, at least here.
Correct.
And I have a question back to your proposed plan. Excuse me. What are the sides of that scalene triangle that come over into the next lot? And I'm assuming that Foresight used, and this is no joke, there's a formula called, I'm a mathematician, Heron's formula. I'm not kidding. It's spelled, I know that's my last name. No, look it up, but it's 1 R. But there's really a thing called Heron's formula, which is to compute the area of a scalene triangle.
So in the law, there's also such a thing as called a red herring. So I know it's not exactly the
But I'm wondering where is that was how the square footage was of that triangle was computed.
I don't know what formula
Okay.
Foresight used,
Okay.
whether it was the Heron formula
But
or
there-
principle, but I just know that, I mean, it
219.7 square feet.
is what extends out past.
Right.
And that the line that extends at the end of the 34.94 feet, where we've proposed a subdivision line, that is 34.94 feet, and we subtracted 48 feet from that to
Right.
get to the 13.06.
Right, but I didn't see the measurement of the other pieces. So then that would be, then what we're talking about is that rectangle, rather than being 4,000 square feet, do you agree is 3,780.3? Because you're subtracting 219.7 square feet, right? So you're saying with the proposed plan, you've got 3 4,000 square feet lots and not lots, excuse me, wrong words, rectangles, and one that's 3780.3. That's what we're talking about?
That's correct.
Okay.
And I think you're far better at math than I am, but that sounded right. The subtraction
Okay.
on 219.7 from 4,000.
Okay.
Yes.
Another question that we've kind of dealt with, but I'd like to go back to, is when I was writing notes about what I wanted to hear today, was compare and contrast proposed versus the alternate. And you've done that, but I'd like to hammer into the points. They're both going to be 4 lots. One requires a variance, one does not. The one that doesn't require a variance, the alternate, will not have issues might not have issues with setbacks and building.
Well, I think it's still awkwardly shaped, and I think another board member pointed out that, or maybe Mr. Townsend, that it may actually have as many problems as the version of the subdivision with the variance, because you're still dealing with that angular lot, irrespective of whether that's 11,000 square feet or 6,000 square
Okay.
feet. You still have that same underlying problem. Again, and actually, the other unfortunate circumstance there, if you want to compare and contrast, is that 2 of the 7,500 square foot lots become 5,000.
Right.
And I say, there's nothing unfortunate about that, but if they could have been 7,500 square feet, I think that's a better outcome for whether it's these individuals or the individuals behind them. Again, there's already a fence line that runs along the boundary between the lots to the rear.
Right,
And so
I
it
saw
makes
it.
sense not to have even more fences, because frankly, I assume if the alternate was approved, everybody really fences off their backyards and creates a little stockade area back there for the 11,000 square foot lot.
To Jan's comment earlier about trees, and I'm a tree person also, does either of these plans possibly preserve more trees?
We have
I'm
not
not
done.
asking- I'm
we
not
have
asking
I have
your-
not done that study or analysis, and I don't know, because I don't know there are no existing building plans as far as
Right.
homes for this, so I don't know exactly what that would look like. Certainly, the city has a tree ordinance.
Right.
And we'll have to comply with that. And you've heard Mr. Lingo say that, obviously, they want to preserve as many trees as they can.
So one thing I noticed between the two plans is that the road frontages for the awkward-shaped lot and the rectangular lots are all the same. So it doesn't seem to suggest that there would be consequences regarding the tree ordinance if these lot lines are not moved. The only new lot line is this one in the,
Oh, that's,
To the, I think that sounds right.
well, and back, yeah, right here.
Right.
You're speaking, okay,
that would be the only extra lot line.
right. Let me make sure I think the last thing I had here, just a minute. Yeah, we assume if it was granted, all the setbacks, et cetera, and tree ordinances would be followed on the lots, that we're not setting ourselves, I wrote the same comment, that up for subsequent variances and issues. So that ends my questions. Thank you very much for answering.
Thanks, Edie. Mark, do you have any questions?
I just have one, and forgive my naiveness, but would there not also be an, oh, I'm sorry, move my, would there not also be another alternative, and that would simply be to cut out the section of the second lot where the triangle goes into it? In other words, make this the lot line, cut out this little triangle from lot number, we'll call this 1 and 2, from 2?
Then the 4,000 square foot rectangle with a 48 size minimum size would not fit in that second lot.
I can see that.
I see that, all right.
Because the lots are
Right,
50 feet.
right.
They're all 50 feet.
So you're stealing from Peter to pay Paul, so to speak. Okay, that was my only question. I just didn't get why we didn't consider that.
And I will tell you that there was, between Mr. Barry, Mr. Lingo, myself, and the folks at Foresight, this property and angles and all sorts of other things have been examined, re-examined, and there's been a lot of struggle to try to figure out, because as I said, when you have more than 28,000 square feet and this much frontage, it's sort of surprising that you would need a variance to create 4 lots.
As large as this lot is, the second lot, the 4,000 could be made by pulling that forward, so to speak.
But you have to have the
But you have to have
dimension.
the right dimensions, I understand. Thank you, that's my only question.
Okay.
And just to make sure you understand, a scaling triangle is a triangle where none of the sides all 3 sides are different. You know, you think of isosceles, you think of right, but that's where it came from. I didn't just make it up. It sounds good, though.
On the record.
For the record, no, you can look it up.
You've exceeded either my knowledge of geometry or my
Well,
memory of
I
geometry.
didn't mean to do that.
No matter how much you prepared for this hearing, Mr. Hutt.
You thought when you went to law school, you were not going to.
I know, that's why I went to law school. I didn't
Go
want
to
to
math
deal with scaling geometry.
All right. And I will ask one more time, anyone from the public wish to speak on this case? If not, at this point, I'll close down the public commentary, and then we will open it amongst the board. We may ask you questions. You have one final?
I just wanted to double check and make sure that Mr. Lingo was done and that Mr. Hutt were done in terms of.
Good point. Thank you, Fred.
The only thing I wanted to add that I didn't do when I concluded is I did want Mr. Lingo to confirm that everything that I said, because I did
Please,
most
yeah,
of the talking.
thank you.
That everything that I said was true and correct, and you would adopt as your own testimony in this matter.
Yes.
Thank you. That's all.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, we will close public commentary and discuss among ourselves. Open it up. Bill? if you're-
It's tough. This is tough. I'm not quite sure where I am yet. I came in, very dubious, because we've got a rule on 4,000 square foot rectangles. I am, the fact that there is a alternative that doesn't require a variance, that seems to me, for all the reasons that Mr. Hutt said, actually does more damage to the appearances in this part of town than what they're proposing, is giving me pause in terms of where my initial leanings were. The fact that that the lot in question will be substantially larger than what is required by city code weighs, in my view, in favor in terms of the overall appearance here. If they were asking that the lot be undersized itself, I would be certainly very dubious about that. So I do want to hear what my colleagues have to say, but I do think that I understand what the argument is on the exceptional practical difficulty, and I understand what the balance is of trying to preserve what the city code is aiming at with these requirements. I do want to hear what other people have to say, but it certainly was affected by the presentation.
Jan, thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, I love trees, and I don't think we have enough, and these are all oversized lots, and, every oversized lot in Rehoboth seems to have a pool. I thank God every day I don't have one behind me, but that's not our job.
Right.
That's the Planning Commission's job or whomever's job. And so I think it's a good plan. I mean, I know the people that live around there are so happy it's not a hotel that, so yeah, I think it's a good plan.
Yeah, just on that point, Jen, we end up with more oversized lots with tab 7 than we do with tab 8, because as Mr. Hutt said, if they go with the alternative, you end up with this very large 11,000-foot lot, but the others are back down to 5,000. So you end up with more oversized, which I assume makes it easier to preserve the trees.
Hopefully, I mean, I just, it's really not something that,
I know I'm going
is
to
our
be on record
purview.
here, but looking at those trees on the lot, honestly, I think they're silver maples, and they're considered weeds.
Really?
But I know
They're
you.
so
I know
big.
Well, the problem, if you look at them, and we're not here to discuss trees, but the root systems of silver maples are really bad for properties. So I'm sure they'll have the requirements for the trees, replanting trees or whatever, or leaving them there.
And that's really not our job.
But they're not. Yeah, they're not
That's
oak
not our
trees,
job.
and they're not 100, 200-year-old trees. Okay, sorry, Edie.
Well, I guess I'm leaning towards the granting the variance. I think that the plan that they have is overall makes much more sense than the alternate. I am very impressed, however, that they came to us with an alternate that would work without a variance.
Many times we don't see that.
Many times we don't see
Right.
people giving us anything other than, this is what we want to do, so here it is. So I am very grateful for having someone to compare and contrast. I think that it's an important aspect to help us all understand our community a little bit better and what we might want to do with it. So I think that these folks have done a good job in making their case about the proposal and how it will work. And I guess I'm comfortable after having heard the presentation and listening to my colleagues here that we could move ahead and grant the variance unless one of my colleagues says something that grabs my attention and says, no, I shouldn't vote that way.
Mark, your thoughts?
I think the plan is a very reasonable
Get the mic.
plan. I'm sorry. I think the plan is a very reasonable plan. And I point out that we didn't have any opposition from any neighbors. To the contrary, we had a letter of support from a neighbor across the street. So I feel very comfortable with the...
My thoughts on this, if, I guess maybe the neighbor's not paying attention, but to put a flag lot in with having someone's front door looking into someone's back, rear door, we probably would have heard something to the negative. Looking at this material, I was very skeptical with that red rectangle sitting on top of that line saying I'm saying to myself, there's no way they can put a house onto that, into that compressed floor plan. But then Jan brought it up, and I had forgotten about it, was Lee Street.
I know.
Very,
I know
very-
exactly. I voted against it.
Yeah, a very odd-shaped house on Lee Street. But they successfully, under compliance, they did have one variance.
They had setback variances, the whole
Setback,
thing.
and they did get it, they did get that house in. So I was very skeptical of this, but, with the understanding.
Variances, which is why I asked the question, because they
Right.
got variances from setbacks.
Right. So we're not going to be looking at setbacks, although that's not a promise. It's, kind of an indication that a house can be built. And with the understanding that, what we what we approve or not approve here, well, if we go down the path of approving this, that the planning commission, we have to say the word in the motion that the planning commission has to respect that we're not putting multiple 4,000 lots. I think we talked about that in the beginning. So, again, the movement, the ability to get a house in there of reasonable size, and I also understand the financial. I hear my non-realtor naive way saying, oh, maybe 3 lots would be just as much money as 4 lots, but I think I understand that. So can I hear a motion from someone on the board, please?
Yeah, I'll move to grant the variance, and as we discussed with our counsel, the minutes reflect the enormous unhappiness that will be here if we're coming in with variances on setbacks. You're free to do what you need to do, but the understanding is that you've done the planning and expect to be able to do this without having to have variances on the setbacks. So I'm okay
the
with
planning commission aspect,
in terms
the
of
fact that we're the chicken and the egg problem of we typically approve things only as they exist. The large lot, it doesn't exist. So I don't know how we
well, I think
how we word that, or if that's
it's-
understood.
Maybe Fred can help us with that.
I get what
there's a request for a particular
Variance.
lot. It doesn't exist, but it's in the record. It's in front of us. It's part of the proceedings here.
Right.
That is what we're approving. So
Okay.
and so that this is for, I guess it's the easternmost, northernmost lot. But I think that the motion and the minutes should reflect that that we are incorporating in our approval, what is in tab 7, the concept that is in tab 7.
Correct. Okay, thank you.
And I think additionally, there was a considerable amount of reference to the scalene triangle too, and the square footage of that. So I think
I second his motion.
that is identifying the area that we're.
I want you to spell that.
that we're in.
Ann has a question.
All right.
Can that motion please be said again?
Sorry, Bill.
No,
Try again.
let me try. Move to approve the variance as requested, which includes the committee's understanding with respect to the, that what is reflected in the lot, and behind tab 7 is what the variance is granted with respect to that lot. The proposed lot, I guess, is actually what you're clarifying.
Right, yes.
That proposed lot. And B, our understanding that the applicant does not expect to need to request additional variances with respect to setbacks.
And I second that
Okay.
motion.
All right, so now we'll start voting on this, and your reasoning, please, on your vote. Mark?
I would vote yes. I believe it meets all of the 4 criteria that we look at, and I think it's definitely the better of the 2 alternatives that were presented today.
Thank you.
I vote yes as well. I think it easily meets the first 3 quick check criteria without a question. And the exceptional practical difficulty is, has been handled, we think, by looking at the alternative, which is actually much less attractive for the applicant and for the city. So I vote yes.
Thank you. Jan?
I vote yes for the reasons stated.
Okay. Bill?
I vote yes. I believe they've met all 4 quick check factors.
I also vote yes. Quick check number 2, character and use of the immediate vicinity. Creating a flag lot, I just don't think is in our best interest for the city. And I agree with Edie on her definition of the reasoning for the exceptional practical difficulty. So it's unanimous. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you for coming. All right. All right, case number 2 today, 100 East Lake Drive. Again, the board will apply the same quick check factors that Delaware law recognizes as guidance for the board. And at this point, this is a request for variance pursuant to sections 270-4 definitions of accessory building and 270-21 floor area ratio. The address is 100 East Lake Drive. And at this point, I will open it up to the city for their presentation.
Thank you once again, Chair. Before you is case number 0823-08. This location is 100 East Lake Drive. The applicants today are Bradley J. and Carolyn E. Rosansky, 4825 Montgomery Lane, number 301, Bethesda, Maryland, 20814, the owners of the same. The subject today is applicant seeks relief from the following 270-04 definitions and 270-21 natural area, floor area ratio, and lot coverage B, floor area ratio. Nature of request is as follows. The applicants are seeking variances to section 270-4 definitions and 270-21B floor area ratio to allow an increase of an accessory building not to exceed 15 feet in total height measured from center line of East Lake Drive. Because the increase in height would result in the accessory building having a plate height greater than 6'6", the proposal would also require a variance to allow the overage of floor area ratio, FAR, of approximately 29 square feet. The property is located at 100 East Lake Drive, Rehoboth Beach, Delaware 19971, and is situated in the R1 residential district. The property is listed in Sussex County records as tax map number 334-20.06-108.00. The property is another irregularly shaped parcel, and the submitted survey included with the application shows the property to contain 5,756 square feet. Application background information is as follows. The application for new home build was submitted on April 25th, 2023, Included in the supplemental submitted documentation, a proposed accessory building is shown in the plan set and included in the scope of work that was approved and the permit issued for construction. The original application was approved showing an accessory building with a total overall height of approximately 8 foot 8 inches. The parcel was located within a special flood hazard area, SFHA, with zones AE 9 feet, BFE, and AO, adjacent grade plus 2 feet. Flood zone construction requirements shall be included in the proposed accessory building. The variance requested are as follows. The applicant is seeking relief from the following provisions. 270-4 definitions, accessory building, a building subordinate to the main building on a lot and used for purposes customarily incidental to those of the main building, or a structure which does not share a wall in common with the main building. No accessory building can exceed 12 feet in height. The submitted documents for this application show the accessory building height to be 11 foot 8 and 5/8 inches, measured from the grade that is located 3.27 feet above the center line of East Lake Drive. The total accessory building height as submitted calculates to 14 feet 11 and 7/8 inches and therefore requires a variance. 270-21 natural area, floor area ratio, and lot coverage. B, floor area ratio, 1. In the R1S district, and the floor area ratio, FAR, for the residence structure combined with the accessory structures, if any, shall not exceed 0.05. In R1 and R2 districts, the FAR for the residence structure combined with the accessory structures, if any, shall not exceed 0.06 for the first 5,000 square feet of gross lot area and 0.3 for any additional gross lot area. Or for properties incorporating an accessory swimming pool, 0.5 for the first 5,000 square feet of gross lot area and 0.25 for additional gross lot area. Because the accessory building is proposed to have an interior finish plate height of greater than 6'6", the additional square footage must be included in the FAR calculation. The submitted documentation notes on an overage of 29 square feet and would require a variance to exceed the allowable FAR total of both structures. Conclusion is that the proposed increase in height of the previously approved accessory building causes violations to the allowable heights of accessory buildings, which results in said building being included in the calculations of floor area ratio. Because both of these code requirements will be violated, the proposal requires variances to allow late construction. And I would just like to add that this property does not have a pool listed in their construction. That is just the totality of the code as written.
All right, thank you. Any direct questions for Matt, or we move on?
Is it 29 feet or is it 43
Yeah,
square
I
feet?
have that too.
The request is 43 square feet.
Let me check the documentation.
Yeah, there, and on elements,
It is 43 square feet. I apologize.
Thank you. That was.
Okay.
I had the same question, but I have one more. Matt, was this your report or was this Corey's?
This is my report.
Okay, because somehow I didn't see your signature and I wasn't sure, so
Okay.
maybe I didn't get that page or something.
Then I have a question.
Thank you.
Is the if the shed was built as originally proposed, okay, without the additional height, the shed, they are still meeting all the natural area requirements, is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, so it's only FAR you're looking at here.
Because of the increase in height.
Right, because the
that
increase in
triggered
height.
that triggered the.
That triggered it. I just want to make sure that the natural area is not going to be impacted. They meet all the requirements for natural area.
Yes, the footprint as originally submitted does not change. So the footprint is fine and has been calculated for lot coverage overall. It's just because they're requesting a height variance is where the FAR gets triggered.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Matt.
You're welcome.
I have a series of questions for you, Matt.
Certainly.
If the house elevation is set because of the flood zone,
Correct.
why, maybe you can't answer this because it could be an ancient code, why is an accessory building set at the crown of the street? Why aren't they similar? Because it just seems like, you could put a flood zone, go way up on, theoretically, up on pilings, and it would keep, why, any history on why that is?
Well, just from an overall code review, even in the FEMA standards, accessory buildings are not required to be, to meet flood zone standards.
Okay, so the shed doesn't have to have the knockout walls or anything like that?
It does have to be built to flood zone requirements, but it's not livable structure. So that building can only be used for parking or storage or minimum storage or structure access. In structure access, it would be, for instance, like a piling house that would have a first floor.
I guess that makes sense. You couldn't put a shed up on pilings. That would look really.
You certainly could.
Put your bike in.
You could have put your bike in it.
Yeah, maybe your bike, but not your lawn.
Okay. All right. And then you said previously approved. So what was it that allowed you to approve it? Maybe you said that, I missed it. You previously approved the shed, but now if something happened, you're coming back and saying?
It was essentially, if you look at the approved documents, it was essentially a squatty, like a pump house.
And that's what you approved?
That's what was approved. This was originally submitted. It certainly can be approved. It's not a habitable area, so that doesn't meet the requirements of any code sections that would be relevant to that application.
Okay. You answered most of my, a couple more. I got to ask you a question, going by the house. How can we set an height elevation from the crown? This is a surveyor question. With all that construction going on, I'm looking at that lot. I actually saw the ground going downhill on the south side of the property. I really have trouble. And I'm only saying this because of our previous survey issues we've had. I have no idea how they could have established a height.
Right. So actually, to give a little ease, I did have multiple conversations with the state floodplain coordinator on this particular project. Because we have multiple zones here, we have the most restrictive taking precedent over the entire lot. In this particular application, in the, checking my documents here, I apologize, in the southeast corner, we have an AO zone. So AO zone requires 2 feet above the nearest adjacent grade in that zone. The nearest adjacent grade to that, what I believe was a 12.41 was the highest adjacent grade. So that floor was then set at 14.41.
And then you added to that, and then that's what, okay.
That's the 2 foot
Because I'm looking
requirement.
physically at them saying,
It
what
does seem a
gives.
little high as far as the neighboring structures.
Yeah.
But it's not as,
Okay,
it works out.
all right. And then what was the height of the squatty rendition?
The squatty rendition, it had a plate height of 6'4" 3/4. It would be roughly, I'm gonna say by the time you put the roof pitch on there, it would have been roughly about 8'8".
8 foot, okay.
What you said, I think, in the report.
Okay,
That's approximately 8 under.
Yeah, 8'7" 5/8". That's what the dimension I was looking
What's
for.
wrong with one that's high?
We can ask the-
yeah, so that was it for my questions for Matt.
No, the 8.8 was mine,
Yeah,
so I.
okay, we'll bring up, I'm sorry, we were having this, we had to grill Matt.
Per the usual.
So name and address for the record.
Yes, Douglas Warner with Element Design Group, 115 West Market Street, Lewis, Delaware.
And Mr. Warner, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And we'll go ahead.
Brad Rosansky, 4825 Montgomery Lane, Bethesda, Maryland, 20814.
Mr. Rosansky, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And we will ask you to speak one at a time. Please don't speak at the same time.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, Doug Warner from Element Design Group on behalf of Brad and Kathy Rosansky, and Matt's done a great job in kind of summarizing the uniqueness of this lot here. We are requesting a height variance for an accessory structure. By definition, the accessory structure is measured from the center line of the road, and in this particular application, the baseline height for the measurement of the home is based from the BFE, the base flood elevation, which puts us in a little bit of a awkward situation for the accessory structure versus the architecture of the home. So what we're requesting in this application is to actually measure the height of the accessory structure from the grade versus the center line of the road, which is on Lake Avenue. The lot is fairly unique. In particular, we've done several homes in Rehoboth, is that it's in multiple flood zones, and it has a change in topography of 3.5 feet going from the east side down to lake. So the resulting structure that we have on the approved plan, I want to highlight that, is that the accessory structure, as you pointed out, the lot coverage and things of that nature are not changing per this request. We're just looking to change the height of the accessory structure here alone. The design as approved resulted in somewhat of a not so appealing architecture and a not so appealing functional storage area for the site. So in saying that, we're just requesting that height variation. In your package, you will see that there is the squatty approved architecture plan, which is close to 8.8 feet above the drive, the grade elevation. And we're looking to take that up to 12 from grade, which is fairly standard in terms of most of the lots in Rehoboth being measured from sort of a flat surface, if you will. The proposed accessory structure, as we're proposing here, we do not believe will adversely affect any views of the adjacent properties whatsoever. No request is being made for an increase in square footage or setback requirements. No structure is located. The uniqueness as well is that the structure, being an accessory structure, is located in the rear side of the home, which kind of forces it to be on the high side of the lot. So therefore, that's part of the request, is that the accessory structure is forced kind of into that location, and then we're being judged from it on the lower side of the parcel over on Lake Avenue.
Question for you
Yeah,
while you're
sure,
there.
please.
The rear of the house is the east side, correct?
Yes, Lake on this particular lot, Lake is the front. It's pretty, it's
Right.
slightly smaller dimension on Lake than
Right.
it is on Prospect. So Lake is the code compliant front.
Okay. And
That's
there,
the Prospect side.
that's,
Yes,
that
that's
view
a
there is.
Prospect side, yeah.
Right.
I
Okay.
went and looked at it.
Oh, did you? So you
Of
could.
Yeah,
course.
so-
Of
Okay,
course.
so the east side is the rear of the lot, and that theoretically, is your driveway access from Prospect?
Correct.
Okay. theoretically, could that shed be moved forward or backward and be compliant? I'll ask that to Matt. Without triggering the FAR, without triggering the height. And I guess there has to be a reason, I guess, for why it's measured off a lake, because the lake is the front of the property. You can't measure it from Prospect, correct?
I would certainly say that theoretically it would be. However, an accessory structure, an accessory building has to be set back to the rear of the property. So it gives very limited opportunity for placement of this accessory structure because we have two frontages with this
Right.
design.
So they can't slide it towards Prospect and be compliant.
That would be, I would need to see documentation possibly. But the
Okay.
design is possible, but remember that, you know, parking is required as part of this as well.
Good point. I forgot. Yes, thank you. Okay, continue. I'm
And even
sorry.
sliding it toward the front, toward Prospect, that's still the high side of the lot. That's where we're experiencing that elevation
that.
12 and some change.
Yeah.
So it's still, moving it forward there really doesn't change the elevation perspective of it.
Okay.
Okay? Let me see here. Yeah, again, so as you'll see in some of the images, and I don't know if Matt, we have the original plans as part of the record. We did not include that as an attachment. But you can clearly see that having the height of the accessory structure relative to the height of the home results in like a 4-foot door getting into the accessory structure. And in our architectural opinion, it actually gives you something that's not quite as appealing as we would like to have, or I would even think some of the neighbors would like to have in this particular application.
Mr. Warner, you designed it.
No, we did not design it. We did the structural engineering and consulted with Brad's architect on the design of the
Didn't the
home.
architect know that this problem existed? Why didn't, I guess I'm missing why they didn't design it correctly.
Oh, I believe, and I don't know for sure, and maybe Brad can chime in here, when the original application was submitted, the architect had a height of the accessory structure of 12 feet above the grade at that location. Because, I don't know if it was a misinterpretation or what have you, of being in this AO zone, they took that 12 feet and measured it from grade, but the result on the approval came back and said that that 12 feet for the accessory structure is different, has a different data point than the house does. So therefore, that was reduced to 12 feet from the height of lake, and that's where the approval came back.
Continue on.
No, I think the real hardship here is if you kind of look at the numbers is the house is measured from a little over 15 feet above sea level. Lake is at 8.75. So we're dealing with 6.27 feet of difference in the data point for these two structures on the same exact lot. So in terms of hardship, if you will, for hardship for an accessory structure can be kind of hard to explain. But the practical difficulty in designing something that looks in conjunction with the home is the fact that we have the difference in slope and we are in a pretty oddball flood zone in this particular area.
Okay, does that conclude your presentation?
Yes.
And would you like to affirm?
Of course I do. Have you seen, I assume you guys have seen the two pictures of what was sent into the building permit?
Yes.
And then what was approved? Okay.
We have copies of it, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we'll open up questions.
Okay. There are people in Rehoboth who would die to have an 8-foot tall shed in their backyard, me being one of them. So I don't understand. The shed itself is not going to, it's still 8 feet, 8 inches roughly tall, correct? So most people could walk into it and out of it and put their bikes in or their lawnmower or whatever, their boogie boards, whatever they do.
Yeah, the shed as approved right now has a plate height of close to 6.47 feet with doors designed at about a 5-foot door height with an overall ridge height with a 512 pitch. That's 8, 7, and 5/8. That's the current design. That's
Okay.
correct.
So I guess I'm really at a loss. If it's not, I mean, you're calling it squat, but it's a shed, it's storage. And I don't understand why, one that tall, you just, for just design, you want it to be taller?
Design and functionality, yes.
But why is it not functional at 8.5 feet?
My client doesn't think it's as functional at 8.5 feet as it would be if we had measured it from a different data point.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Bill, any questions?
No.
Hey, Edie?
No. No, I do not have questions.
Okay, Mark?
I guess I'm more concerned, you had mentioned that you're not asking for a square footage variance, but you are. You're asking that the FAR be extended 43 square feet, which in itself is a shed. A 6x7 shed is, everybody in Rehoboth would like to have that 4x6 overage on their
That was
square
triggered by
footage
the
on their
height.
FAR. Right, I understand why it's triggered, but nevertheless, it exists. And I guess I'm having trouble with figuring out why the designer who knew what the FAR was didn't design storage into the FAR so that you didn't have to get an exception.
I can't.
And he's not here, so
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
no
I
answer.
mean, I
understand
would
that.
say that if the height variance was granted, but the FAR variance, a FAR increase was not granted, that could be something that could be adjusted with the overall, maybe taken out of the house, for instance. You know, if there's a 43 shortage that the client would like to apply to the accessory structure, then that would have to be accommodated in removal of that 43 square feet from the primary home. But it is the height. Yeah, the height, if you granted the height, then that kicks us into
the FAR.
the request to ask for the FAR.
I have no other questions.
Okay, all right, I have a few questions. Did you consider soil removal to bring, and I didn't even know if that would be allowed, but to bring the plate height down? I know you can't modify lots.
Yeah, typically in flood zones and in the city of Rehoboth, you're pretty much stuck with your
got it.
with your lot
Okay.
soil heights.
All right. On the foundation wall of the house, is there an access point to get under into the crawl? It's a crawl space, I'm assuming.
No, it's a slab.
No, it's a slab. With the AO2 requirements, basically, you know, that base flood elevation, AO2 plus freeboard, puts us 3 feet above grade. So anything below that 3 feet cannot, no crawl spaces, no plumbing, no anything of that nature.
Maybe show the picture again, please, a clarification. So where that foundation's come up to the green board, how will you access underneath? Is that
It's
slab?
concrete.
It's slab all the way?
Foundation filled in with soil and then a slab on grade, if you will,
Okay.
but it's 3 feet up in the air.
Does that include the porch? I think the porch is on the west side. Is there
I think,
It's on the East Lake, yeah.
on East Lake Drive? What about the porch?
the front, have to bear with me a second here because,
I do know there's a porch in the
Yeah,
design.
There's a small storage area under the porch.
Okay, so where I'm heading with this is,
I know where you're heading, yeah.
you know, I put my lawnmower under my porch. It's about a foot high, just a kind of an idea.
Well, I would respectfully say, I mean, if you look at the dumpster there, that's literally going to be the door height of the shed, approximately. I didn't measure the dumpster. So aesthetically, this is going to look like we went to Home Depot and bought an Amish shed. I mean, you may not care, but it's not going to look great in the neighborhood. And I get what you're saying about everybody would be happy to have a shed with that, but the complexity of this lot and the 2 flood zones made it very, very difficult to design. And all we're asking for, aesthetically, we're looking for something that's going to look nice with the house and look nice in the neighborhood.
How big is the shed again?
It's small. It's what,
72 square feet in footprint.
In dimensions? What by-
It's 8 by 9.
Okay, I know everyone has this perception of a shed, front doors, and you walk in lengthwise. I mean, a solution, put the doors sideways. You open the door, you slide the mower in, you slide the bikes in, and you don't have to go into the shed. I know what you're getting at with the height.
it's going to look awful. It's going to look absolutely awful. And by granting this, I don't think you're setting any we've been to the commission before asking to try to get a rectangular house, and this lot has been very problematic. So we're just asking for something aesthetically that would look good. I don't believe you're setting precedent for somebody else. Maybe you would disagree, that's all.
Okay, they were all my questions. And again, the porch is on record that there is space under the porch.
There is some
Okay,
space under the
okay.
porch.
All right, any other questions?
We might have a member of the public.
Yeah, we do, I have to go there. And anyone from the public wish to speak, Jay? I think, Ann, is that mic live? Okay.
Yeah, it's on.
So it's name and address to start.
Jay Legree, I live on 7 Prospect Street. I'm the neighbor across the street. The letter, I take it, you probably haven't had a chance to read my letter.
Yeah, we did. Yes, we did.
Okay, thank you. The other person is the next door neighbor.
So,
Oh, at the swear-in.
yeah.
Oh, God, I solemnly swear, tell the truth, told everything, Fred. I just agree to everything.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony given in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I solemnly swear. Our little neighborhood sits next to Silver Lake. Every time rain falls, it goes into Silver Lake, comes down Prospect Street, that all goes into Silver Lake. So anytime you add a slab or any other kind of impermeable surface, you're going to take away some of the ability of the soil to soak up all the nutrients and the bacteria that are in Silver Lake right now, or to at least prevent it from going in. And Silver Lake is fighting those two problems. It's fighting nutrients, it's fighting algae, and it's fighting oxygen. So our little neighborhood would like to not put more stuff in Silver Lake. And this 72 square feet is going to be a slab that puts more stormwater in Silver Lake. The house is being built from new. They controlled all the storage area, all the design, everything from the beginning. So I'd like to have a shed. I don't have a shed. I have to put my bikes in the house. Sally and Cal across the street, their next door neighbors, have to put their bikes in the house. We'd all like a shed. And it was something that could have been controlled from the very first time, from the very first architectural drawings. They could have had storage in the house. There are a lot of questions I have, but most of them we've talked about. The citizens of Rehoboth have never denied an ordinance that didn't cut down on density. Every ordinance is passed. Height, bulk, setbacks. We're all about decreasing density. Putting sheds or anything in any accessory structures is just increasing bulk. So I'm against the FAR increase. Height is right in there along with it. I'm against that. We talked about Silver Lake, and there are several options that could have been done that they wouldn't have had to do this, and I'm not sure why the structure was designed as it was. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll answer any questions that you might
Okay.
have.
Any questions for Mr. Legree?
Thank you, folks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, at this point, I am going to close down the public commentary section, and we'll open it up amongst the board. This time, I'm going to start with Mark.
I don't see any exceptional difficulty. I'm sorry, but I don't see any exceptional difficulty whatsoever.
Nor do I.
Okay. Jan?
Nor do I.
I think we're unanimous on that.
Yeah. I mean, my thoughts on this is, a shed, under the current rules, a shed can be placed there. And my mind goes to all different kinds of styles that, it doesn't have to look like a squatty kind of shed. Everyone gets this, like I said, this perception of having to get inside the shed where different styles that can hold bikes, stand bikes up, very shallow. You can do all different things put a lawnmower. You can even put the lawnmower underneath the porch possibly. I don't see an exceptional practical difficulty here, as you can have a shed, and maybe if you ask the designer to work on a design to build something that's compliant. I mean, it stinks. Again, I'm not, the rules, boggles my mind about the different height measurements, so I feel for you there.
I thought we were sort of asking
How the
maybe for
code,
some
yeah.
latitude because of that.
But I do think you can achieve what you need. I don't see a practical difficulty here, so I'm going to ask for a motion from the board.
I move that we deny the variance.
I second it.
Okay, I'm going to ask for votes. Bill, I'll start with you on your end, and your reason.
Yeah, I support the motion to deny the variance. I don't believe that it meets the quick check factor, particularly exceptional practical difficulty.
Okay.
And I support the motion to deny the variance for the very same reasons.
Okay. Edie?
I feel the same. I think I vote to accept, or I vote in favor of the motion to deny.
And your reasons?
I think it doesn't meet the exceptional practical difficulty. There is a shed that's possible. There is a shed size that's possible. As Jan said, there are people who would love to have any kind of shed possible. So I think these people can, I know it may not be what you want. We're trying to listen, but there are ways for you, hopefully, to solve your problem. So, and I also, as a side, I don't think that we ever want to get in the situation of telling the zoning folks where they can measure from. I think our zoning is based on where you can measure what from. And I think that, I feel strongly that we need to stand by that for our community.
I think. Mark?
And I also vote to deny. In addition to what's been said about no exceptional difficulty, also we've gotten responses from two neighbors that indeed the shed of the height would have a negative impact on their property and their well-being. So more than one reason to deny it.
Right. I too vote in favor of the motion. Quick check items 1, 2, 3 were met in my mind. It is number 4, the exceptional practical difficulty. So I do think you can work on a better design because you are allowed a shed and just work on the design with an architect. So it's unanimous. So the variance is not approved. Thank you for coming. Okay. Is there any other business, Ann? Do we have anything else? Okay. Are we having a meeting in October? Not sure? Okay.
A definite not
Because
sure.
Not sure. Matt, Corey did a good job in your absence, and
Yes,
with
he
that,
did.
Great.
we'll
Yeah,
he
he had good things to say about you all. so.
all right. Have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
All right. All in favor? Aye. Thank you,
Aye.
everyone.